this is a conspiracy. That's what this is. One big damn conspiracy! And everyone's in on it, including her.
There are certain movies that stand apart from others in people's minds. While usually it is much deserved, there are a lot of cinematic staples that people hold in high regard. The movies where it is viewed as a crucifiable offense if you haven't seen them by the general public. The Shawshank Redemption is one of those movies that has made it onto most people's crucify list. This hard-hitting prison-based drama is one of those great films that most everyone has seen. So the idea of someone not seeing this modern classic, well, it just feels like they are truly missing out. However, it seems we almost all might have missed out. When this movie came out, almost no one went to see it. It came and went in an almost eerie silence. But why is that? How could something that is now highly cherished go completely unappreciated when it was initially released?
More than 1,400 people turned out last night for the world premiere of the film Shawshank Redemption.
When Shawshank Redemption rolled onto the big screen in 1994, people were not really sure what to think of it. For this movie, writer and director Frank Darabont chose to adapt a short story by Stephen King called Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption. From the very beginning, this was a bit of a weird choice since it wasn't a particularly popular story of his, and it wasn't even a horror one. He said, even King didn't really understand how you make a movie out of it. To me, it was just dead obvious. Frank Darabont had a strong vision for this work. Stephen King's hesitance was quickly removed due to his confidence in Darabont. The two had previously collaborated with a short film, so King knew that he would do everything in his power to get it right. For the film rights to the story, Darabont had written King a check for $5,000, a check that Stephen King never did cash in. King wasn't the only one with faith in Darabont, as the studio that produced the movie, Castle Rock Entertainment, quickly provided the funding. It is a good thing they did too, as no other studios were at all interested in this project and thought it wouldn't succeed.
How can you be so obtuse?
Castle Rock loved the idea and was actually Darabont's first choice. They seemed to also think pretty highly of him as they granted him final cut approval. This meant that as the director, he had complete creative freedom on the project and could make it any way he saw fit. He was also easily able to convince high-quality talent such as the underrated actor Tim Robbins and the voice of God himself, Morgan Freeman, to join. This is all insane when you put into consideration that Darabont had never directed a feature film before this one. So why did these people put their trust in someone who was such a novice? They joined because the area where his experience really did shine was in the script.
I still think it's the best script that I've ever read. I think it's the most complete piece of work in script form that's out there.
However, it doesn't matter how strong your script is if no one sees your movie. And there were several reasons why people weren't eager to go see it. One of the primary reasons is that the film just didn't seem like it would be entertaining. It looked to the casual audience like a spoonful of medicine. One of those movies that just felt like it'd be a chore. Around the 1990s, there was a preconceived notion about prison movies. Besides a few standout examples, they viewed a lot of these movies as melodramatic and tired. Since the genre had been done so many times in the past, why would they want to sentence themselves to go and see another one?
Imagine reading a plot synopsis of this, because a plot synopsis of the movie would be terrible. It would just be two people in prison in the 40s, and what happens to them. Because you can't really summarise up the feeling of hope that you get from watching the film.
The fact that the movie took place in a penitentiary made it have a hard time finding an audience. But that wasn't the only reason. Another point of contention that people had was with the title. The Hollywood Reporter called it enigmatic, which was actually one of the nicer words used to describe it.
We got teased quite a bit in the press about it as being one of the worst titles for a film.
Initially, this was even more a problem as Darabont wanted to use the novella's full title. However, it was far too long and had its own share of problems.
We wound up dropping the Rita Hayworth bit because we discovered as we were prepping the movie that there was a certain amount of confusion that was sowing in people's minds. There was the impression that we were preparing to do a Rita Hayworth biopic.
Since people were under that impression, all of a sudden the studio became overrun with audition tapes of young actresses trying to prove they could play Rita Hayworth.
We got a phone call from the agent representing a supermodel who at that time was trying to break into acting. And this agent swore up and down it was the best script that she had ever read. She felt her client would be perfect, just perfect, darlings, to play the role of Rita Hayworth. And that, of course, kind of told us how carefully this agent had read that script.
So to prevent confusion, they decided that Shawshank Redemption should be the name on the marquee. Frank Darabont attended the sold-out premiere but wanted to see what the public thought of the movie. So during its opening weekend, he and one of the film's producers went to the famous Cinerama Dome movie theatre to see people's reactions in person. Much to his dismay, out of 900 seats in that theatre, they were the only two there. The movie's name is often cited as the main reason for this lack of turnout. After all, if people cannot remember or understand the name of your movie, then you can't expect them to want to see it. However, even now, over 25 years later, that name is still confusing people as they get it very confused and scrambled.
You won't believe what we hear from people.
Oh, that's my next question.
Oh, yeah. Scrimshaw Reduction.
One lady stopped me in the elevator and said, "I just saw you in the Hudsucker Reduction."
This is why the film had very lackluster box office returns. With a relatively small $35 million budget, it is estimated to have only made half that. It didn't help just how stacked the alternative options were at the theatres. That same year saw the release of such predominant people pleasers as Pulp Fiction and Forrest Gump. This movie also ran parallel to other big popcorn flicks like Dumb and Dumber and Speed. A deliberately paced 2.5-hour drama was not what people were looking for when those other two movies were available. While the movie failed to sell tickets, it did succeed at getting those who did buy them to speak up about their experience.
For everybody that saw it, they were shouting about it from the mountaintops.
The critics did love it, complimenting its beautiful story and exemplary acting. These critical ravings didn't help the movie's gross. It did, however, earn it a place at the Academy Awards. The film even got nominated for Best Picture that year, which, as any Oscars nerd can tell you...
And the Oscar goes to Forrest Gump.
So if having your film literally be nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards doesn't help your film succeed, what will?
That's all it takes, really. Pressure and time.
So who would save this movie? Who would go to bat to redeem the Shawshank Redemption?
I think maybe only Castle Rock understood what they had in the Shawshank Redemption.
All of the critical beamings and Oscar buzzing just confirmed for Castle Rock Studios that this movie was truly something special. Despite them already at a financial loss, they dug down onto their heels even further. Following its release to home media, Castle Rock made over 300,000 copies of the movie to use for rental stores. This was a move that even their parent company Warner Brothers said was kinda out of whack.
Waste of money if you ask me.
Yet it got the movie in front of people. They did the same thing when they were negotiating movie licensing with the channel TNT. The company actually gave the television rights away rather easily, but that too paid off. The year after the movie crashed and burned, it rose up again as the most rented movie of 1995. Then after it aired on TNT, the viewership would go up and up every time they aired it. It got to the point where they would play the entire movie nearly daily. Once the movie got in front of people, it was an immediate favourite. It just took time to get there. Once the word of mouth took over, the movie became something that everyone could share with each other. This is because the same script that got it made got to everyone in a different way.
After a while, a lot of men coming up and saying how important that movie is to them. If you think about it, how many movies are really about two guys, friendship, long term? No sex, no romance, no violence, no caper, no buddy picture kind of deal. Just simply about long-term friendship.
I hope I can make it across the border. I hope to see my friend and shake his hand. I hope the Pacific is as blue as it has been in my dreams. I hope.
There is a quote that anyone who has ever thought about going into filmmaking ought to know. To make great movies, there is an element of risk. You have to say, well, I'm going to make this film, and it is not really a sure thing. Darabont knew the risk, and so did everyone else that helped him, From the chance that Stephen King took on trusting him with his source material, to the studio that gave him carte blanche to adapt it in his way. When the risk didn't seemingly pay off though, Darabont wasn't discouraged for a second, as he knew it didn't matter what anyone said about his work.
Critics can't tell you. Even the audiences of the day your movie is released can't really tell you. The only thing that really will tell you the value of what you've done, or the lack of value of what you've done, time.
Time is the ultimate judge. There have been plenty of other movies that may not have done well initially, but have become important to many people's lives. Sometimes, greatness isn't really appreciated until later on.
I guess you guys aren't ready for that yet. But your kids are gonna love it.
And likewise, some movies that were once hailed as modern classics have fallen by the wayside, some of them even being downright disliked. So what does this all mean? If you have a project that you truly are passionate about, then you have to keep at it. If you are proud of what you put forward and what you have accomplished, then no critic can take that away from you. Sometimes it takes time, but if your story truly has a strong theme or message, then it will always work. That is why Shawshank Redemption will always be relevant to new audiences. Its themes of friendship and feeling helpless are things that we can all relate to. And its theme of hope will always spring eternal.